The 1974-75 season, League Division 3 finishing 17th, League Cup second round, FA Cup second round. If George Mulhall was to carry Halifax Town on to better things, he would have to do so without his assistant Ken Hale, who returned to his former club Hartlepool at the beginning of June to take over as manager. Mulhall thought he had solved that particular problem when he promoted Johnny Quinn to player coach, but deep inside he knew things were not quite as he would have wanted them to be. New players at the club were striker Steve Downs and left-back John Collins from Chesterfield and Portsmouth respectively, each costing £6,000, and midfielder Ricky Muir from Shrewsbury. Town's professional staff was increased to 15 with the additions of trialist Paul Luckett and ground staff boy Mark Harold, but there was disappointment when former skipper Andy Bergin asked for a transfer. Though he would appear in Town's opening 5 games, he would finally get his wish, moving to Blackburn Rovers for a £14,500 fee. Whether or not he believed his own words, Mulhall stated publicly that Halifax would be a force to be reckoned with this season. Early results suggested they might. As well as moving into the second round of the League Cup following a 2-1 win at Barnsley, Town were unbeaten in their first 3 league games and had looked particularly accomplished when beating Crystal Palace, a First Division side only 2 seasons previously, 3-1 at home. Smarming from defeat, Palace boss Malcolm Allison retorted that the Shea facilities were a disgrace and Town shouldn't even be in the Football League. Even so, it was the Shaymen who would have the chance to go top in their next game. Although they would do so often, they proceeded to blow it big style. Big time, crashing 4-0 at Southend. Oxford defender Nick Lowe had been signed on loan. He played in the Shaymen's 3-0 defeat at Stoke City in the second round of the League Cup, where Terry Conroy, a tormentor of the Shaymen for a number of years, scored a hat-trick. The result suggested an easy ride for the First Division side, but it was never that. Town actually acquitted themselves quite well, but the successive defeats in the league that followed gave cause for concern. Mulhall was exasperated in his efforts to improve things, but with only a small squad to work with, this was nigh on impossible. On the 18th of September, fed up and disillusioned, he tendered his resignation, claiming that Halifax Town wasn't for him. Second Division Bolton, however, evidently were, for within a month he teamed up with Ian Greaves at Burden Park. Into Mulhall's shoes stepped Johnny Quinn. He was appointed caretaker manager for the 1-0 defeat at Blackburn, but having been given the job on a permanent basis on the 23rd of September, he immediately attempted to have Town's game at Peterborough postponed as he only had 12 players at his disposal. The Football League refused permission, so undeterred, Quinn pressed Barry White into action as an emergency sweeper. This would be the first of 4 outfield appearances made by Town's reserve keeper, as injuries cut the squad down to the bare minimum. While Town slithered down the table, defeat at Aldershot left them 20th, Quinn added new faces to his squad. The Chesterfield pair of midfielders Ray McHale and centre-back Albert Phelan signed up, with one-way Terry Shanahan moving in the opposite direction. Then Kenny Blair arrived, originally on loan from Dave Mackay's Derby County. He would sign permanently in November. To compensate for the loss of Nick Lowe, who had been recalled by Oxford, another extra player was acquired when Sid Faramond arrived from Tranmere Rovers to take up his duties as coach. Faramond registered as a player in case of emergencies, but Town had to fork out £500 for his extra services. Whilst results were generally disappointing, the one shining light in this side was the form of striker Dave Guifer. He was playing so well that Quinn suggested the Welsh FA take a look at him with a view to Wales's European Championship qualifying game with Hungary at the end of October. A 5-match unbeaten run took Town up to 18th, but their revival ended with a bang at Gillingham. There was hopes that a run in the FA Cup might spark some interest among supporters, but though the team won at Barnsley in the first round, a shallow performance at non-league Stafford Rangers led to an embarrassing 2-1 defeat, the winning goal coming in injury time. Town therefore missed out on the chance of pulling a big club that would have brought in extra revenue, and how the club needed it. The directors claimed they only had enough money to keep the club going until the end of February, and might have to sell their best players to survive beyond that point. At the turn of the year, Town still hovered above the relegation zone. A 4-0 defeat at Wrexham told no lies, though Quinn signed a full-back from Colchester, confusingly named Alex Smith, the same as Halifax's goalkeeper, and took on loan Bobby Scaife from Middlesbrough and Bobby Campbell from Aston Villa. Defeat at Preston on February the 8th dropped Town to 22nd in the table. Then suddenly Town found the form that would ultimately save them. A 5-game unbeaten run included a 2-1 victory over neighbours Huddersfield. They were bottom and having harder times than Halifax. This run lifted Halifax out of the relegation zone and was a prelude to an even better run to the season's close, in which they only lost 2 of their last 9 games. The drop was avoided. Safety was actually guaranteed at Brighton on the 16th of April, 4 games from the season's end, where Town slugged out a goalless draw. The retained list was announced before the last game of the season. Only Ricky Moore was released, but omitted from the list was the name of Johnny Quinn. He had not actually played since February, but he knew by now the extent of the demands of being the manager of Halifax Town. Quinn retired as a player in order to give himself the best chance of turning the club around. However, as he was to find to his cost, this was beyond him. The do you know fact for this chapter? Between 1965 and 1971, the 4 corners of the pitch had to be taken up whenever speedway meetings were held on the perimeter cinder track.